In the Rick and Morty episode, Never Ricking Morty, there's a scene where Morty has to come up with a story about strong women that passes the Bechdel test, and in order to do so, he ends up coming up with a ridiculous story about Beth and Summer where neither of them talk like human beings, both have unexplained, over-the-top magic powers, and everything is unnecessarily related to gender. This scene, in all honesty, is more or less a perfect parody of how so many writers still try to write so-called strong female characters as emotionless, one-dimensional superwomen rather than strong characters who happen to be female. In the past, obviously, many female characters have merely been written as love interests or damsels to be rescued, but then writers realised this wasn't fair to female audiences who wanted a real hero they could see themselves in, whose goals in life were more than just wanting to get married and have babies. And while many attempts to create well-written, strong female characters have been successful, in a lot of cases it hasn't really worked so well. See, what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that when we say strong female character, the strong adjective isn't referring to literal physical strength. It's referring to strength of character. Exactly what makes this character well written, three-dimensional, and worthy of our praise and admiration. Physical strength is one thing, but intelligence, honour, integrity, and other such virtues are equally important, as are character flaws, given a perfect character is often one-dimensional and shallow. Think of it as being like Thor's hammer. No matter how strong a character is physically, it doesn't matter. They need to earn the right to lift the hammer through their worthiness and strength of character. So today, let's compare one of the success stories to one of the failures, and to make it fitting, it will be an examination of two interpretations of the exact same character. That character being Mulan, with the 1998 animated classic being a great example of a strong female character, and the 2020 remake being not so great. The beginning of the 1998 movie introduces us to Mulan, a character who seems pretty likeable and relatable. We see that she's a very kind and well-meaning character who's quite smart and intuitive, but at the same time she is a little awkward, naive, and clumsy. The beginning shows her preparing to meet the town matchmaker, which unfortunately does not go well for her due to her awkward clumsiness. Feeling shame and dishonour, we see her sing the song Reflection, which shows her inner conflict of wanting to bring honour to her family but knowing that she doesn't conform to the standards of femininity required by her culture. Thus she feels she doesn't belong and simply wants to find a place where she can be herself. The beginning of the 2020 movie introduces us to Mulan. Mulan is shown to be a very tomboyish child, always practicing fighting, to the point where she's an absolute prodigy, practically superhuman. That's because, turns out, she is superhuman, as she's naturally gifted with strong chi, which in this world is apparently literal magic. Unlike Mulan's personality isn't really shown in great detail. She doesn't get her own musical number, nor indeed any kind of reflection. She's also sent to a matchmaker to find a suitor, and doesn't seem enthused, but she doesn't exactly seem unhappy about the situation either. She's just there. Anyway, unlike in the animated film, it's Mulan's sister here who causes the accident that puts off the matchmaker, not Mulan herself, because, this Mulan is basically flawless, and she almost saves the day. Her biggest problem is that her society doesn't respect the fact that she, a woman, has such strong chi. Yeah, we're really going down the route of, I'm so perfect, it's a curse because no one understands me. In both movies, the characters' elderly fathers are called to war, despite both being in bad shape. Mulan, seeing this, is anxious and terrified that her father will die, and realising what it'll do to her family, she builds up her courage and decides that she'll go in his place, despite having no combat training whatsoever. Mulan does the same, except rather than her action being one of bravery, hers seems to be more one of logic. While Mulan's action is brave because she's plunging herself into unknown danger without the skills to take it on, Mulan is clearly already a powerful warrior, so of course she's going to go. When Mulan joins the army, she goes through rigorous training, none of which goes well for her, nor any of her male companions, because none of them have ever really fought before. Her commander, Li Shang, gives them all a test where they must climb a pole with weights attached to their arms and retrieve an arrow at the top. At first, none of them can do it, including Mulan. However, after consistent failure and humiliation, Mulan realizes the only way she can prove herself is by getting the arrow. Rather than using brute strength like the others, she uses her wits and figures out that she can use the weights to her advantage, helping her to climb to the top. Now, overcome with confidence, Mulan is able to train hard and prove herself against all odds. Hua Mulan starts off almost in the same position. No one is very good at the training, including her. Except that's a lie. Turns out she's deliberately holding back because in reality her superpowers make her already perfect and better than everyone. Why is she holding back? Well, people always criticised her powers, except they were clearly criticising the fact that she was a woman using them. Well, I guess unlike Hua Mulan just isn't so bright. Her great test is carrying 2 buckets of water up a tall mountain. Does she accomplish this with wits? No, she just uses her strength. Does she at least show perseverance and determination? No, her powers make it effortless. We see that throughout Hua Mulan's journey, she doesn't use brute force or strength to complete her goals. Instead, she uses her strong wit, her mind, and her careful planning. Hua Mulan, on the other hand, she just uses her natural perfection in combat. There is one scene where, admittedly, she does use a plan to deceive and take out the enemy army, but that's it. No brains, no determination, no effort, just naturally occurring perfection. Hua Mulan is not perfect, and that's why she's so empowering. Because she's just a normal, average woman who is able to prove herself as equal to the men, specifically because she shows them that traditionally masculine brute strength isn't everything, and that using your mind and wit is just as important. Hua Mulan, on the other hand, is a flawless superhuman. Now, a character being super powerful can still work, so long as they have some kind of weakness that they must overcome to complete their story arc. Hua Mulan has no weakness. Her story arc revolves around her coming clean about being a woman, but she acts like this was some kind of great slight to her honour and her not being true to herself when, come on, we all know she was doing this for her own safety. This is not enough to seem like a hurdle to overcome. Hua Mulan's flawlessness makes her incredibly unrelatable and honestly very bland. She shows almost no personality throughout the movie. She barely reacts to anything, and she never shows any real passion. She's like a doll, just wearing an empowerment hat. You know, people often complain about impossible beauty standards for women. When the media only ever presents extremely beautiful and perfect-looking women to the point where it sets impossible expectations because no one can actually obtain a flawless Photoshop face in real life, well, honestly, presenting ridiculous perfect characters isn't much different. It's just another impossible standard to live up to. No one in real life can be this perfect. Another problem is that the original Mulan celebrated non-conformity and stood against the enforcement of traditional gender roles by saying women can be masculine and men can be feminine. Both traits are important and worth balancing. Mulan 2020 instead celebrates hypermasculinity, obedience, and conformity. In the original movie, Hua Mulan saves the Emperor, who is a wise but defenseless old man, from Shan Yu, who, while not that interesting of a villain, is still very intimidating and, notably, never shows any sexism towards Mulan, but instead takes her on like an equal. And on top of that, again, Mulan beats him using her wits and planning. In the remake, rather than being a wise and grandfatherly old man, the Emperor is now also a big masculine tough guy, who unnecessarily takes on the son of the man he killed, Bori Khan. Now we have a showdown between two overly hyper-masculine figures who are both ready for blood, only acting with brute strength and aggression. And the only difference between them is Bori Khan is a sexist. because the Disney remakes cannot be bothered actually writing a balanced, realistic tale of sexism, because that would require too much effort and audience thought, so instead they must spoon-feed us baby's first equality lesson. Hua Mulan solves her problems through traditionally hyper-masculine brute strength and power, and if there's one character trait that she does have, it's her constant obedience. While Fa Mulan spoke out against her mistreatment and understands her deception was necessary and the people complaining were the ones in the wrong, Hua Mulan isn't there to change anything. She believes her deception was terrible and asks for forgiveness and promises she'll still be the same obedient warrior she's always been. The only difference Hua Mulan is ever going to make is the fact that she alone is now allowed into the boys' club. She doesn't prove the virtues of femininity nor the downsides of hypermasculinity. When she is victorious, she still acts like she's brought dishonor and needs to repent, in contrast with Fa Mulan, who really just wants to be with her family again. The message she gives off is that traditions and conformity and obedience are good, and if you can exploit a loophole, fair enough as long as you're perfect. When Hua Mulan returns home, her sister has been matched. Now, there's nothing wrong with pursuing a more feminine goal, but once again, we see nothing has changed. The archaic matchmaking still exists, and Mulan is fine with it. We could have had the sister reveal that she'd found a true love on her own, and that the matchmaking system is backwards and pointless now. But no, the film is all about knowing your place. Ultimately, Fa Mulan is a true strong female character. She goes off to war despite knowing she isn't strong because she truly cares about her family. She is flawed and she faces failure, but she overcomes it using her strength of will and strong mind. She proves that her society's patriarchal way of thinking is wrong, and she proves that femininity isn't a bad thing. She speaks up for herself and she proves herself honourable despite what tradition says. Hua Mulan is not a strong female character. She's bland, she has little personality, and she gives off the message that only perfect women with superpowers can be equal to men, and that physical strength and force are what's really important. She never really speaks out against the problems with her society's sexism. She just asks if they can let her personally into the all-boys club. The key word of strong female character should be character. If you're writing a woman, consider her personality and what makes her relatable and enjoyable. What is her goal and what hurdles must she overcome to achieve it? And if you are going to bring sexism into it, don't dumb it down to the point where it's completely condescending. Yes, anyone can see this is bad. You are not making a grand statement by agreeing with them. Now, if there's one thing I will say, it's that Hua Mulan, I guess, isn't that much different to the plenty of bland male action heroes you see in mediocre movies. So I guess she does achieve some equality in that regard, but that doesn't make it okay. So many bad writers try to use empowerment as a crutch for bad writing, because they can't be bothered to write a truly three-dimensional character, but at least if she's a woman, they can say they made her a boring superhuman in the name of empowerment. It's not that hard to write a strong female character, and many good writers and good characters have proven that it can be done, and I hope that Fa Mulan will forever be remembered as one of them. Thanks for watching the video. There's a lot more I could have said about my issues with the Mulan remake, but I feel that probably would have taken me off topic. All I can say is, don't bother watching this movie, just stick to the original. I do like the original Mulan, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it, or indeed on any other films or TV shows that you think did a good job of writing a female lead. As always, like, share and subscribe and all that jazz, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Goodbye!